Ever heard of a family adopting a child and then later claiming she's actually an adult scammer?
Oh, wow.
It sounds crazy, right? But that's the reality of the Natalia Grace Barnett case.
Really?
Yeah, and it's such a bizarre story, it's actually inspired a new Hulu series.
Huh.
So today we're going to deep dive into this case.
Okay.
Using this really fascinating USA Today article, we're going to see if we can separate fact from fiction.
Sounds interesting.
We'll look at who the main players are, the different stories everyone is telling, and all the ethical questions this case brings up. Get ready, because this one's about to take us down a rabbit hole of medical mysters, legal battles, and family drama you won't believe.
I'm intrigued already. It really makes you think about how we decide what's true and how easy it can be for someone to, change your mind about something.
Right. It's definitely a case that messes with your head a little bit.
Totally. It's a mix of family drama and medical stuff and legal issues.
So let's start with the basics. Who is Natalia Grace?
Well, she was born in Ukraine and adopted by this couple, Christine and Michael Barnett.
When was that?
Back in 2010 in Indiana, Natalia was diagnosed with spondyloepiphyseal dysplasia congenita.
Say that 5 times fast.
I know, right? It's a rare form of dwarfism.
Okay. And that diagnosis is important later, right? Because the Barnetts use it to back up their claims about Natalia's age. Like, they're saying her dwarfism made her look younger than she was.
Exactly. The Barnetts claimed Natalia wasn't a child at all. They said she was an adult pretending to be one.
Wow. Like, what kind of evidence did they have for that?
Well, they pointed to some things, like signs she was going through puberty, what they called adult behaviors, and even that she was dangerous to their family.
It's just so wild to imagine a family doing something like that. Why would they even say that?
It's really hard to know what they were thinking, but it's something we have to ask. Were they really convinced that Natalia was tricking them?
Yeah.
Or was something else going on? Maybe they were worried about what people would think about them adopting a child with special needs.
Yeah, that's a good point. There could be societal pressures we don't even know about.
Right?
Okay, so then the Barnetts take things a step further. They actually go to court to legally change Natalia's age from 11 to 22.
You're kidding.
Nope. And a judge in Marion County actually agreed to it.
Even with medical reports saying it was a child?
Yeah, even with that.
Wow. That's unheard of, isn't it? Legally, I mean, does that even set a good example for future cases? Can people just change their legal age whenever they want based on, like, whatever they say?
It really makes you question the whole legal system, doesn't it? Like, what's stopping people from lying to get what they want?
Exactly. It's a slippery slope, especially when it comes to these really sensitive cases. This could be used to take advantage of people.
Right, because changing Natalia's age isn't just about changing a number on paper. It affects her legal rights, whether she can get an education or health care. It changes who she is in the eyes of the law.
Exactly. And legally, this whole thing could have a huge impact on other cases in the future where someone's age is being questioned.
It really shows that we need better ways to protect people from this kind of thing happening.
Yeah, for sure.
And to make things even more weird, after they change her age, the Barnetts get Natalia her own apartment. Then they just move to Canada with their other kids.
So that's where people started saying they abandoned her, right?
Right, but since they legally made her an adult, it's not so clear-cut.
I see. So was it really abandonment, or were the Barnetts actually scared of Natalia, like they said, and thought they were protecting themselves?
Exactly. It becomes a question of what neglect really means.
Because legally speaking, neglect is when someone who's supposed to take care of you doesn't give you the things you need. But they made Natalia legally independent. So did they actually break the law?
It's such a gray area, and it makes you think about all the other families struggling with similar issues. The legal system can be so confusing.
For sure. This case shows us that our laws need to be more clear, and we need to make sure that everyone, no matter what their legal status is protected.
Right, like if we're going to let people change their legal age in these kinds of situations, how do we protect both the person whose age is being changed and the families involved?
That's a tough one, and something that legal experts and policymakers really need to figure out. This case shows there are some serious problems with the system.
Now, the article mentions that the Barnetts said Natalia was dangerous. They even said she tried to poison Christine.
Right, I read that.
But we also have to think about Natalia's side of the story. Based on her original birth certificate, she's probably in her early 20s now. And she did an interview with People magazine where she said she feels relieved and free since leaving the Barnetts.
Yeah, that's a big contrast. Like, we're hearing two completely different versions of what happened. It's impossible to know for sure what really went on in their family.
Exactly. It makes the whole situation feel even more unsettling.
It definitely reminds us that these aren't just legal cases. These are real people with their own emotions and experiences.
And their own version of the truth. This case really shows how complex truth can be, and how our own perspectives can shape what we believe.
It makes you think about family, adoption, and even what it means to be a child. And in that interview, Natalia actually talks about wanting to be a teacher. She seems to be doing pretty well.
It's amazing, isn't it? After everything that happened, she still found a way to move forward.
Right. She doesn't say anything about the Barnett's claims in the interview, but she does talk a lot about her future, almost like she's creating a new story for herself.
Like she's taking back control.
Yeah, exactly. It's like she's saying, this is who I am, regardless of what anyone else says.
It makes you wonder, though, how this whole thing will affect her in the long run. To have people doubt who you are, to be seen as dangerous by the people who are supposed to love you.
That's got to leave a mark.
Absolutely. It really shows how complicated trauma can be.
It makes you think, how does someone go through all that and still manage to build a life afterwards?
It's incredible the strength some people have. Oh, and the article mentions that a woman from Ukraine who said she was Natalia's real mom was asked to help figure out Natalia's age.
Oh, right.
Whatever happened with that?
That's another thing we don't really know. It does make you think about how hard international adoptions can be. Did they do everything right when they adopted Natalia?
It's scary to think that maybe they didn't. It just shows how important it is to make sure everyone's safe in these situations, especially the child.
Absolutely.
This case also makes you think about how society views adoption and people with disabilities.
Yeah, that's a good point. If we're not careful, cases like this can make people think negatively about adoption or even people with disabilities.
Right, it can fuel all sorts of prejudice.
Absolutely.
This case has become a huge public spectacle. People love these kinds of dramatic stories, and now everyone's choosing sides, blaming one side or the other without even knowing all the facts.
And social media just makes it worse.
Oh, totally. People only see what they want to see. They ignore anything that doesn't fit their opinion.
Yeah, it's all about confirmation bias.
It's hard to see the truth when everyone's shouting their own version of it.
And the media doesn't help. They love a good headline, like adopted daughter or adult con artist.
It's like they want to make it into a movie.
Well, speaking of movies, there's that new Hulu show, Good American Family.
Oh, yeah, with Ellen Pompeo and Mark Duplass. It's supposed to be based on this case, but they've obviously changed some things.
Yeah, it's fictionalized, which brings up a whole other issue. Is it okay to make entertainment out of real-life cases like this, especially when there are still legal and ethical questions?
Right. Are they just using someone's pain to make money?
It's a tough question. Some people say these kinds of shows can bring attention to important issues, like the challenges families face with adoption, or the stigma around disabilities, or even just how complicated the legal system can be.
But then there's the risk of making the story seem even more sensational than it already is, and mixing up fact and fiction, and maybe even influencing what happens in court.
It's a tricky balance. Viewers need to remember that it's just a TV show.
Yeah, it's not a documentary.
It really shows how powerful stories can be. But it also shows that we have to be careful about how we tell them.
We have to be respectful of the people involved.
Exactly.
In the end, this whole case, even with the Hulu show, just needs us with more questions than answers.
Right. It's like there's no clear ending. No good guy or bad guy.
And that's what makes it so interesting, I guess. It forces you to question everything.
It makes you realize that truth isn't always simple.
And maybe that's the most important lesson here. Life isn't black and white. We have to be okay with not knowing everything.
Exactly.
Okay, so as we wrap up our deep dive into the Natalia Grace case, let's try to make sense of everything we've learned.
Yeah, we've gone through a lot. So many different stories, legal battles, and questions about medical ethics.
Right. It's a case that makes you question what you believe about family, adoption, and disability.
It really does.
And at the heart of it all, we still have the question of Natalia's real age. Was she a child who was taken advantage of? Or was she tricking her adopted family?
And what about the Barnetts?
Right. Did they do the right thing? Or did they abandon Natalia?
It's hard to say for sure. Even though the charges were dropped, it doesn't change the fact that they made some questionable choices.
And the fact that a judge agreed to change her age is still troubling. What does that say about our legal system?
It makes you wonder if it's too easy for people to manipulate the system. And it shows that we need stronger safeguards to protect everyone involved, especially when someone's vulnerable.
Absolutely, and we can't forget about the media's role in all of this. That Hulu series, even though it's fiction, raises questions about how we tell these stories.
Yeah, is it okay to profit from someone else's life like that?
And do we, as viewers, have a responsibility to be more critical of what we see on TV? To remember that it's not always the whole truth?
It's something to think about, because these aren't just stories. They're about real people.
So where do we go from here? I don't think we'll ever really know the truth about what happened with the Barnetts.
Maybe not. But maybe the real point of all this is to get us thinking.
Right. This case forces us to examine our own beliefs and to have conversations about these difficult issues, even when people disagree.
Exactly. And it reminds us that truth is rarely black and white. We have to be open to the gray areas.
Absolutely. And it makes you realize that the system, the laws, they don't always protect the people they should.
It's something to think about.
One last thought. Imagine you're Natalia. Imagine your whole life being questioned. Having to deal with the legal system, being in the public eye, how do you think you would handle it?
It's hard to even imagine.
It really makes you think about the human side of this story and all the other stories like it out there. We'll be back soon with another deep dive, but until then, keep asking questions, keep learning, keep those minds open.